Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kasper On BI I. This is the first episode of 2023, and I thought it would be nice to do a little looking back on 2022. What are some of my favorite features of Power BI? So much has shipped, so much was done over the last year. What are some of my favorite features? What are some of the things that I think really changed the game? So with that, let's go to the episode and let's talk about these amazing features. All right, so 2022 was an amazing year. What are some of my most amazing features, the things I loved? Let's start with probably everyone's favorite, field parameters. And with field parameters, if you're not familiar with it, I will put links to each one feature that I talk about today into the description. So you can click on it, play with it, see for it yourself. But field parameters is really allowing you to change what you want to see. Like for example, you can change the measure or description based on the selection. So you can create a filter or a slicer and say, okay, I want to see the chart by products or by year or by whatever. And by just clicking on that slicer, it automatically changes the chart. Of course, even multiple charts. So it's really cool and it really allows interactive exploration. So again, this is a feature. I don't know if anyone remembers, I wrote a blog post on this probably like 6 years ago or something on how you can do this through DAX. That is a really inefficient approach. Everyone who used that functionality came, I recently talked to Chris and he had one of the customers who was using this functionality and performance was really bad. So luckily now there's field parameters to allow us to do it. So that's one. That's probably everyone's favorite. The second thing is multiple apps per workspace, multiple audience per workspace. And this again is a feature that people have been asking for a long time to really make sure that they can reuse files and reports and data sets for multiple different audiences without having to recreate it or copy it across workspaces. So now you can create an app, not workspace, app, and you can define which audience can come in to this app and what that audience would see. So that is really cool because now you can say, okay, when this app gets opened by the sales department, they see this report, this report, this report. But when someone from HR opens this app, they see this one additional report. And that allows you to steer who can see what and only having to write one app. And you can pick those reports from multiple different workspaces and put them into one app. So this is really cool and really powerful. So again, amazing feature. People have been asking for this for a long time. So hopefully this will help set up a lot of these things. Now, this year also some amazing new DAX functionalities, and mostly these have come in pretty recent. There's actually three main things that I want to talk about. One, horizontal fusion. Horizontal fusion is a new feature that is a query performance optimization. You won't see it or you won't notice it when you're writing DAX. It doesn't change anything, but it reduces the amount of queries that are getting sent to the underlying data set. And this can be even in import mode or in direct query mode or whatever. And especially in direct query mode, this is a huge thing, but even in not direct query mode, this is a huge thing. As you can imagine, for example, today, when you have a table or a matrix visual, and the matrix visual usually already sends two queries, one for the actual visual and one for the grand total. With horizontal fusion, it tries to look at those queries that it sends and combine them into one under the covers, and then send it to the underlying data source to retrieve the data once instead of sending multiple queries. Of course, less queries, as you always hear from Marco and Alberto, less queries is better. That's a given of obviously. This is true in Vertipack in analysis services mode. but this is really true when you start doing direct query mode. So again, super excited about that. Now, there's two other new types of DAX functions introduced. One is evaluate and log, and two CSV and two JSON to help us do debugging. Now, I really don't expect anyone to use that function directly. I won't use it, and I don't think anyone will use it. But this is mostly for third-party tools to incorporate into their tools. So things like DAX Studio and other products can integrate this into their tools to really improve debugging of DAX, to make it easier to do debugging. So that's really cool. And then the two CSV and two JSON allows us to parse it into a format that is showable or exportable. But really, again, I don't think I hope no one will ever use this in production as an actual functionality feature. Now, the one that I'm most excited about is the windowing functions that have been released. So index, offset, window really make it easier to do comparison calculations. Today, again, I think most of the scenarios will be for time intelligence functions. Like I want to do year-over-year growth. I want to do month-over-month comparisons. Today, you have to create a date table and make sure it's there. And it is also not as performant in direct query mode to have these things. And actually, time intelligence functions don't even work in direct query mode. So now with these new functions, you can actually do time intelligence in direct query mode. So that is a really massive improvement. And also, I think once you learn the trick once on how to do windowing functions, time index, there's already lots of blog posts out there for people who are really excited about this feature. But once you know the trick on how to do it, because it looks a bit daunting, if you ask me, but again, it's not that simple because you have to change the context again. Of course, that doesn't change in DAX, but once you have the corresponding table where you want to move between, like, okay, I want to move 1 year in the past or 2 years in the past, or I want to do a windowing function or an index, then it becomes really straightforward. You can just copy and paste. It's just always rinse and repeat. So once you get it, it's pretty straightforward and simple. And again, it is good. Like it's easy to use. Like let's say you want to do a really crazy time format, like you want to do a 13-month or a 6-month rolling average. Again, these are pretty hard to write. With the windowing and indexing functions, things get much easier. So I'm really excited about this. Now, while we're talking about direct query mode and optimizations, I'm also pretty excited about the new Optimized ribbon. Optimized ribbon, you can pause visual queries and remove fields and from the field list. So today, as we all know, Power BI is a very query heavy visual tool. Whenever you do anything, like you drag in something on the field list, you clean something out, you click on a slicer, everything that you do actually means a query is being sent, which is very expensive. And especially when you start talking about big data sets in direct query mode. It's expensive, it costs money even to send queries like this. So with this feature, you can pause it and then you can make your report and then run it once. So that is a great optimization. The other thing is in direct query reports, you can do one-click apply for optimization presets. So that means like I can create, again, this actually features already existed before, but they were a bit harder to manage. Now you can just say optimize for direct query mode. And then, for example, slicers will get an apply button. So you can make a selection, slicers and also filters will get an apply button. So you can select things, click apply, and then the report gets applied. Again, less queries is more. It's better for performance and better for optimization. So optimized ribbon, I'm pretty excited about. Now, The other feature, obviously, that we need to talk about is Datamarks. Really think Datamarks is a really cool feature, and a lot of scenarios, a lot of use cases that I've seen where a consultant goes into a project, you get a Power BI Pro license, and you get some shitty data. Some data sitting in the SharePoint folder, some CSV file that gets exported. Now there's a huge gap today between that data sitting there in that SharePoint folder and the actual eventual Power BI report. So you have to do a lot of massaging, a lot of Power Query magic and tricks, and things get pretty complicated in a hurry. Now with Datamarks, you have this intermediate layer where you can land data in yourself. And then from there, like, it makes things easier. You can have intermediate steps where you can store data into the underlying data source. So that's really cool. So I think Datamarks, pretty excited about this functionalities and features. You've already seen some updates to it, like the Visual Query Designer and things like this got updated in Datamarks. So I expect much more to come. I'm pretty excited about it. Now, for those of you who have been coming to my sessions, I mostly talk about security these days because I think it's a underappreciated thing that not a lot of people talk about. And Power BI has some amazing security functionalities. And I don't talk about security. And this is usually as soon as I start talking about security, people think, oh, row level security. No, I don't mean that. What I mean is the security that surrounds Power BI to make it a safe platform to upload data to. And one of the most amazing features here is MIP labels. So with MIP labels, and again, this is not a new feature, but I'll come to the new part in a second. But with MIP labels, you can assign, like for example, if you have a Power BI desktop file and that is highly confidential, and I email it to someone outside of my organization, they won't be able to open it. That's really amazing. The other feature that has shipped earlier this year is MIP policies. And MIP policies is the next step of this. It can detect what type of data you have in your model. So for example, if you have a policy inside your organization, let's say you're a hospital and you don't want any patient numbers or whatever, like we have a personal identifiable number, like in the US, you would have social security number or something like this. If you don't want that uploaded, you can create a rule in the MIP portal, in the security portal, that is a regex expression that can detect the data in the model. And it's not just regex, there's I think 250 things that automatically get detected, like social security numbers and credit cards and things like this. But as soon as you upload that data to Power BI, you automatically get a message and a warning about, hey, you're uploading this data to Power BI, you shouldn't do this. And also a security officer will get a message. Now, hopefully at one point, again, the team hasn't given me any concrete dates or anything, but hopefully you will also be able to actually block upload to Power BI. That would be really cool. So with MIP labeling, there's a lot of things possible, and it really helps govern your environment while embracing that self-service BI usage. Now, the other amazing thing that I'm really excited about is, of course, paginated reports for Power BI Pro users. That is really cool. I mean, I don't have to spend too much time on paginated reports. It's been there longer than I have been in the BI industry. So yeah, it's been there forever. It used to be only Power BI Premium. Now, as a Power BI Pro user, you can also use it. That's really cool. Another cool feature that a lot of people have kind of missed, it's kind of hidden away. Of course, it got announced on the blog post, but data refresh cancellations finally is available in Power BI Premium. It was already possible through APIs, but who's going to write APIs to cancel refresh and things like this? No one. So now there's a cancellation button on your refresh. So that's really cool. And that really helps a lot too. Now, I think the final feature that I'm really excited about for this year is the analysis services migration tool. Now you will ask, why is that so amazing? And what are the things that, like, we could already point Visual Studio to Power BI and just process it there, push it there, and then process it, and then we're done, right? Well, the new migration tool makes it, first of all, really easy. That's the cool part. But second thing, what you will now have is an automatic redirection. So anyone in your organization who's using, like, this is the kind of like the problem with analysis service models. They can be used by anyone and to do anything. So they can have a pivot table pointing to your analysis services model, or create their own Power BI reports against the analysis services model. And so who knows who's been using your analysis services model, and you don't want to break them. Or maybe you've created a ton of reports and you don't want to break them. Now, the good thing is this new redirection feature allows you to move the model from Azure Analysis Services to Power BI while keeping the existing connection alive. So this is really cool. So you don't have to do anything. You can just migrate from Analysis Services to Power BI, and that's it. You don't have to rechange all the reports. You don't have to do anything. It just automatically works. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, some people might want to ask, why do I want to do this? Well, we'll get to that in a second, because there's a lot of things inside of Power BI that do not exist in Azure Analysis Services, or maybe they do exist in Azure Analysis Services, but they're quite complicated or expensive. Now, that brings us to, what am I excited for in the new year? So looking at the release notes and all the things that are going to come in the next couple of months, what am I really excited for? The first thing that I'm excited for, again, coming back to, actually, maybe we should talk about this one first, because we're already talking about analysis services. Probably the most amazing feature that I'm going to expect there is going to be something we call query scale out. And query scale out is going to really allow high concurrency without you having to worry about anything. So, for example, in the past, if you wanted to do something like this in Azure Analysis Services or on-prem Analysis Services, you had to set up or actually in on-prem, you had to do a lot more, but in the Azure Analysis Services world, you can create query scale out nodes. Power BI, running on Power BI Premium, is going to automatically scale out whenever it's needed. The best part is, without any cost for you. Obviously, the whole idea, because it's a SaaS platform, is you pay by usage. So we want you to be able to use your data set as much as possible. Like 1 million users, great. So what will happen under the covers is someone connects to the Power BI, and the data set gets loaded in memory, and queries going to get resolved. That's just the way it works today. But more people come in, more people come in, more people come in, and before you know it, you have tons and tons and tons of people, and the data set might be getting a bit overloaded. So hundreds or thousands of concurrent users, which is usually, actually, I have to talk about this a little bit. A lot of people say they need thousands of concurrent users, but concurrent users is really something that is not actually happening that often. If two people at the same time are doing an Azure Analysis Services, they're not actually concurrently using the model at the same time, because queries are not coming in at the same moment. Everything happens in milliseconds. So queries come in, queries go out, queries come in, queries go out. So it's not that concurrency is actually concurrent. So that's something to really take into consideration when you start planning out really big deployments of Power BI, because queries get returned so fast. But going back to the query scale out, is what automatically is going to happen is when more users are starting to use your model, automatically we are going to load more data sets in memory on different nodes. Like, you don't have to worry about it. It's our SaaS service that will take care of it on different nodes and give you the query responses from there. So automatically will scale out. You don't have to pay anything for this. Of course, you pay for usage. So let's say you have a P1 and then you have 1 million users connecting to that P1, well, the CPU is going to run out. That's going to be a given. So the same thing applies to whether it's a single data set or a scaled out data set. You need to have enough CPU. Of course, you can do auto scale and things like this, but in the end, you're going to pay for the queries that are getting sent. But I'm really excited about this. And again, this is a feature, like if you want to do these national analysis services, you have to pay. You have to spin up another node. You have to worry about it. Here, it will automatically happen. Now, the other really exciting thing that I'm really excited about is the web editing experience. So this will allow you to model on the service without Power BI Desktop. Now, this is really cool. And I already see a lot of use cases for it. Of course, it's really early days. Today it's in private preview, so it doesn't really exist, but people have already been talking about it. So I can talk about it here too. I don't think it's in the release notes. I searched, I couldn't find it. But this is again, really cool. And the reason why I'm mostly excited about this is I can finally do multi-screen. I can have the model on one screen and I can have my modeling and DAX and on the other screen. That is really cool. So I'm really excited about that. And the other cool thing is that they're going to build in, and again, incremental steps over time. So not immediately probably the full-fledged experience that everyone is expecting, but multiple steps over time. You can work with multiple people in the same model. Okay, that's really cool. Finally. So I'm really excited about that. Another really cool feature that I want to talk about is something that, again, it's not in the release notes, but it's been talked about in conferences and things. It's something that they was called visual calculations. This is a new, I must say, a completely new DAX way of thinking, where today you always have to keep the model in mind, the tables, the relationships, and everything that you do. But with this new functionality, you will be able to have visual scoped calculations. So they aim to make it easier for less technical users, but it means like you can point to values in the query that, so let's say, for example, I do a sum of sales amount by year on a graph. Okay. Pretty simple and straightforward. So you put them on the table, you drag in the year sales amount and you drag in the year. Now with this new visual calc, you can say things like, okay, give me the previous row. So there's no context on what it actually means and what the years are or anything like this, different than windowing functions. So you can just point to cells inside of the visual, which is pretty much similar to what Excel can do. But you can write DAX expressions, you can do things. All of that data gets imported into like the matrix or into the visual. And then on top of that, you can point to values inside of that visual with a new visual calculation. Again, it doesn't get added to the model or anything because it doesn't work in any other place. They will work on the result sets. Yeah, so it's really cool. You can do many things with it. It's obviously amazing for performance. Like one of the other amazing things, like you can refer to the grand total, for example. So, okay, I want to divide by the grand total. And you can just say, give me the grand total of the row on the big grand total. So that's really cool. And it's going to make a lot of interesting use cases happen. And also, again, it's really good for performance because we are querying on top of the result set. So we're not actually having to send queries back to the underlying data source. So I'm pretty excited about that too. And I mean, there's more things coming, but this is what's in the release notes. So I can't really talk about that yet. The other thing that I quickly wanted to call out too, and is a session that I've been referring to, that I did on my own channel, that I've been referring to time and time again, even to other customers. It's the session I did with the ABN AMRO Bank, with Ben de Jonge. And the reason why I wanted to call that one out is it really showcases that self-service BI can work, as even in more restrictive and, how should I say it? A little bit, of course, paranoid organizations like banks, and of course, I mean, I don't blame them. Of course, they need to, because there's a lot of sensitive information. You don't want to get any leaks and things like this. So in many organizations, we see a lot of like, let's tone down the self-service, like let's lock things down. Well, they have taken a different approach where you really can do self-service in an organization like that. And users have been really excited and happy about it. And of course, they're getting much more insights out of that data than you would be able to do before. So this is really cool. I'll put the link to the description. And yeah, that's it. There was a lot of talking, a lot of interesting things. Maybe you have learned something new and you've missed some of these features. I went back through all the blog posts and see what did I like, what did I miss. As you heard, like 2022 was an amazing year. A lot of new features happened under the covers. So that's really cool. I'm really excited for 2023. And the next episode is one with Simon Sabin, who's the organizer of the SQL Bits conference. So we're going to talk about how did it get started and what are the things that make a big conference like this and where did it get going? And we're going to talk about community too. So with that, I want to wish you an amazing Happy New Year. 2023 is going to be really cool. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's happening. So with that, I'll see you next time.